I don't want to be a kind of high-minded person here in the sense that obviously all media has to seize your attention, has to be entertaining, has to be engrossing. But if it's all specifically designed to make money off your obsessive addiction, then it will create addiction. If it's designed to actually advance some other goal, like finding out more about the world that makes sense, then it can be a very better possibility. But how do you legally do that? I mean, how do you uninvent the algorithms which are designed to do this?
Yeah, so we don't want to uninvent algorithms. We want to change the business model for exactly the reason you just said. That those are two slightly different things. So I remember saying to Asa saying to me, just like we banned lead in paint and petrol, we should just ban the current business model. We just say you cannot have a business model that's based on finding out weaknesses in people's attention, hacking them and selling their attention to the highest bidder. And I remember saying to him, right, and lots of the other people who said this to me in Silicon Valley, right, but let's say we did that. The next day, do I open Facebook and it just says, sorry, we've gone phishing? And he said, of course not. They would have to move to a different model. One is subscription, which you've just talked about. Another potential model might be, before we had sewers, we had shit in the streets, we got cholera. So we all pay for the sewers to be built and we all own them together, right? You own the sewers in DC, I own them in London. It may be that like we own the sewage pipes together, we might want to own the information pipes together so that because we're getting the attentional equivalent of cholera. Now, you'd have to make sure that was independent of government. You'd have to have a model like the BBC, the most respected media body in the world. Obviously, it would be catastrophic if it was owned by the government for all sorts of reasons that are so obvious. I don't need to go into them.
But at the same time, how would you ever insulate it from government pressure? Because you're nationalizing it, essentially.
Well, there's always the threat that the government could nationalize anything, right? So the government could do that with anything.
In America, not so much.
I think there are ways.
I mean, I just don't know legally how you do it. I mean, I in general, I'm a little leery of rather ham-handed attempts to shift the private sector's business models. I mean, they're trying to make profits. How do we say you can't make a profit or you must make a lower profit?
I think there's all sorts of things we say that people can't. I mean, the lead industry, for example, was an enormous industry. We just said, look, for you to pursue your business model is so profoundly harmful to the society and particularly to our children, we're not going to allow you to do it, right? Now, of course, that doesn't mean social media disappears. But the key thing is when you move to a different business model, whether it's subscription or public ownership of some kind of public ownership independent government, all the incentives change. Suddenly, you're the customer. So they have to ask, what does Andrew want? Oh, Andrew wants to be able to pay attention. Okay, let's redesign our algorithms to heal his attention rather than harm them. There's all sorts of ways that can be done. I go through some of them in the book. But I think you've got to a really important thing as well, which I would say that is difficult. That is hard to do. You're absolutely right. What happens if we don't do it socially, right? And I think this relates to lots of the things you've been writing about, Trumpism, wokeism. And I think you have to understand it in relation to deeper psychological phenomenon. So two things have come together. You've got a business model premised upon getting you to scroll as long as possible. So all the algorithms are trying to figure out what keeps people scrolling. And this was not the intention of anyone who designed them. Got to be clear about that. They didn't design it this way. But that bumped into a deep human truth that's been known about for a long time by psychologists, which is called negativity bias. So anyone who's ever seen a car accident knows what negativity bias is. Human beings will stare longer at things that shock and anger and frighten them than they will at things that make them feel good. You stared longer at the car crash than you did at the pretty flowers on the other side of the street, right? This is very deep in human nature. 10-week-old babies will stare longer at an angry face than a happy face. Probably for obvious reasons in our evolution, humans who are more alert to danger are more likely to survive. But this has a horrific effect when it combines with algorithms designed to maximize engagement. Picture it as simple as this. Picture two teenage girls, you mentioned them before, who go to the same party and go home on the same bus. And one of them does a status update where she says, that was a really nice party. Everyone looked good. I had a great time. And the other one goes, Karen was a fucking hoe at that party. Her boyfriend's a prick. She stank like shit. Just a stream of abuse. Now, the algorithms scan both. They look for words that are anger and outrage based because they know that will engage people more. The current algorithms will put the first status update into a few people's feed and the second status update into loads of people's feeds. Because if it's enraging, it's engaging, it will keep people scrolling. Now, that is bad enough at the level of two teenage girls on a bus. When you do that at the level of the entire society, we're in real fucking trouble.